This is the Astrology and Tarot Show with Jessica Adams.
Thanks, Shane. Here is your Astrology and Tarot for the week starting September 15. If you want to see timestamps for your sign, always pick up this podcast at the Astrology and Tarot Show on Substack. And if you want a version with great music, pick up Rockstars on Mixcloud. Now, do you have factors in Virgo? The new moon partial solar eclipse in Virgo on September 21 is best avoided for decisions about your workload and well-being because an eclipse always leaves you in the dark. Your tarot this week can be decoded at my website. Aries, the King of Wands, Taurus, the Two of Pentacles, Gemini, the Chariot, Cancer, the King of Pentacles, Leo, the Devil, Virgo, Strength, Libra, Temperance, Scorpio, the World, Sagittarius, the Three of Wands, Capricorn, the Four of Pentacles, Aquarius, the Moon, and Pisces, the Three of Pentacles. Aries, well, look across town or across the map sideways for the freedom that you need. Uranus in Gemini is here until November, then back in April 2026, so that might be in your calendar already. It's an exhilarating time. For a few days now this week, there will be a big emphasis on a very different new angle on planes, trains, cars and boats and other ways of getting around. It's about getting away for a weekend or even longer, and also how you get around town. The revolution is here. You have known about this for quite some time now, Aries, as this cycle has been with you for a few months. So whether it's a neighbouring place very close to you or even a neighbouring country, France and England connected by Eurostar is one example. What you're discovering is that if you accept change but also make change, you can find more independence. So in fact, the map, even though it's regional or local or showing you a place next door, is expanding your space. People talk about everything being exciting and amazing if it's overseas, but what you're discovering on this cycle is that it doesn't have to be that far at all. The only exception being, of course, adjacent countries in Europe, but the rule about neighbours holds. This cycle is unpredictable. It can come out of nowhere. It can change everything in the blink of an eye. And there's every indication this week that that's going to happen. Whether you actually go or move this week or it happens later, you would be wise to open up to the possibilities. This cycle is associated with a call to action. It's associated with electrical storms, new inventions, and everything that's new, original, and different. So there is also a focus actually on the transport. And this may be an electric car, for example, hybrid, or something that you've never even thought of. Uranus is the cycle in astrology which brings the last thing that you expected being the first thing that happens. If somebody had told you 2 or 3 years ago that you would be heading in this direction across the map this week and also into next year, you would have been amazed. But it's unfolding and it's also going to set you free. Taurus, Jupiter in Cancer shows the transportation travel sector of your chart is rewarding you until June 2026. It doesn't matter if this place on the map currently exists only on the end of a telephone or the internet, or if your relocation is tied up with it in a major way. It all hinges on how hopeful you are. This is the cycle when optimism rewards you, and any acorn that you planted 12 years ago shows every sign of growing into an oak. This is very much about places close by or just across the way. So in England, for example, it may be the next county or the difference between Scotland and Wales. In Australia, it may be from one state to another or from Sydney to Auckland. In America, it might be from LA to New York. It's on that level. But what's being shown this week is if you take an opportunity, if you believe, if you have faith, then all kinds of rewards could come, not just now, but also later on in the first half of 2026. This is a 12-year cycle, so you'd be wise to take advantage of it. Brothers, cousins, and sisters are also in the same cycle, with Jupiter in Cancer in your solar third house. And if you're one of those Taurians who have Gemini factors in your birth chart, this is a revolution. It will change your life in relation to your sibling, your cousin, and sometimes with a neighbour, setting you free in a way that is historic, with all the signs being there, not just now, but also next year as well. Gemini. The South Node in Virgo cycle explains the repetition with your house, your garden, apartment, your household, family, town and or country, and around you go in a loop. What can you do? Well, you can change on the inside. This kind of cycle is neither necessarily negative or positive, but it does take you back to the past. 18 or 19 years ago, you set up karma. Now it is returning to you with familiar themes from that time. In fact, some old faces may reappear or old places. This cycle runs until July 2026, Gemini, and it runs because it is designed to get you to evolve, become a better and happier person. When you cannot change what other people say and do, particularly with the family or the household, what you have to do is change on the inside. And that's the trick of this cycle. You have to understand that the whole point of it, according to astrology, is that you progress and you grow. You become more philosophical, maybe more tolerant. Maybe you are also in a position this week, Gemini, to use the fact that you know exactly what's going to happen next as a springboard to get what you need. This cycle does end. It will end next year. But just for the moment, this week, try and see that all these circuits and loops that you are experiencing can be explained by what happened 18 or 19 years ago. Whether you feel that it's good for you or challenging for you, all the clues and the answers rest there. Cancer. Your friends have been at the heart of a slow revolution since 2018. The revolution with your friends returns in November and takes you until April 2026 to complete. And that would explain why you still don't feel that one matter involving a friend is settled. If you both get it right, it can be liberating, and this week is the launch pad that you need. Find the common ground that you share in terms of your independence or his or her need for independence, as that is the foundation of everything. This cycle is Uranus in Taurus, and it began in 2018, comes back for one last swing from this week forward, and is then gone for good next year. So by that time, you'll be able to look back over your shoulder at your friends, whether this is online or in the real world, and say that the revolution has indeed finished. This cycle is based on people who reject and who are rejected. So hearing no is very common with friends, and also saying no to friends as well. This enables more space to open up. An Independence Day for you, he or she, would already have happened before now, but it will be back. You may also have seen the same thing happen with another friend who is no longer there centre stage, but who was part of the story for you since 2018. Freedom and independence are won the hard way on this cycle. You really only get them by rolling up your sleeves and acting. And the other variation on the theme is that you make a new friend from this week forward who is also liberating. It's the kind of friendship that enables you to find the oxygen in the room and to lead a very different kind of life, breaking with the past. So all sorts of things here are unfolding for you, Cancer. They call this the unpredictable cycle. So what happens comes from nowhere. Leo. Pluto in Aquarius now means that a set of scales with an important man or woman at the other end are shared, and you are going to be shown this week what the scales mean to you in terms of control and how to balance them, and also how to avoid unbalancing them. Pluto is about to throw you into a crucial new phase of your lives when big power is in the space and you are sharply aware of questions about who and what is in control of this seesaw or set of scales in your life. It may be personal, like a marriage, or business, like a work partnership. But the scales between you are always being rebuilt on this cycle, either with the same person or maybe with two or three of them. Over the last couple of years, you have been introduced to the idea that only using your willpower can actually help you with the balance of power. And there's no other word for it. That is really what is here in front of you now. There will be decisions about this person or from this person in January and February 2026 when the planets in their courses start to gather in your opposite sign of Aquarius. This week is a setup, and one of the things about astrology is it can tell you ahead of time to minimize the stakes and to reduce the risk of complication, as the last thing that you want is a real power struggle or a conflict over control. The scales are sometimes legal, and it's often also about the other side as well as your other half. So just be aware of what you're getting into this week. With any luck, you can use your willpower and your self-control to be empowered and wake up next year to find yourself in a proper power partnership. Virgo. Unless you and a certain someone learn how to read each other's minds, which is unlikely, you're going to have to talk or read those text messages or emails with special attention this week. Karma from 18 or 19 years ago is with you in terms of the other person. And sometimes on this cycle, it can be about a duet or a duel. So both of you together or one of you facing off against the other. The North Node in Pisces will do that. It's your opposite sign. You are owed from 18 or 19 years ago by the universe, or maybe you owe spiritually. And that's why this week is bringing echoes of the past with it. The complete closure will come next year. This week is part of the process towards signing off on the karma. And if you think it means that in 18 or 19 years from now, echoes of this week will come forward, you're quite right. That's the way these things work. I spoke a bit about the nodes last week. They are a fundamental part of astrology, not just here, but also in India. And it's very likely that they knew about them at Stonehenge. In fact, the number 1819 turns up in most cultures. So here you are hitting that old cycle. And if you feel as if you're not going forward or hearing anything different or seeing any changes, that's also pretty common with a nodal cycle. And what it does is ask you to develop your response to the familiarity or the repetition, becoming a happier and better human being as a result of that inner change. Libra. Pluto in Aquarius brings power and control questions regarding courtship, the bedroom, babies, infants, children, teenagers, or Generation Z. If you're a parent or have children in your life for other reasons, maybe you're a teacher, for example, then this week is also just as important. The issue may be the nature of the control. It's important that you remove any potential for a power struggle with or about a younger generation in early 2026. This is a very long-term cycle, Libra, so you can have a baby in this year or even this week and then find out in 10 years from now, 15 years from now, that you wished you had inked something on paper between yourself and others regarding this child. That's just one example of what can happen. It's extremely common to hit a stage in the family where children become teenagers or where parents begin to look at custody issues if they are separated or divorced. Again, you can see this coming and you can reduce the odds and minimize the stakes. The whole point of astrology is awareness is all. And just knowing that Pluto represents power and control, and it's now in your zone of younger people, gives you the bandwidth that you need to really sort this out and get it to where it needs to be as you go into early 2026. The issues can sometimes be there too because you are going through IVF, fostering, adoption, and they can be just as easily if you work or volunteer in a field with children or teenagers. Scorpio. This triple Aries cycle has a lot to say about your relationship with bosses, employers, clients, staff, and colleagues. If you don't have a job, it's about your relationship with people who have an impact on your unpaid work or your academic career. You're now being asked to find 3 different tactics for these issues. And for lots of you, your well-being, your mental health or physical health is tied into the question about work, duty, service, and your lifestyle. When I say 3 different tactics, it's because these 3 cycles are all so different. One of them, you're playing a waiting game and there is a test of patience. In another, you are tempted to see what you can get away with. And finally, the third cycle, Neptune, is asking you to look for an escape, a holiday from reality. So you may have one job that fits all those three scenarios, or you may be going between different roles, unpaid work like housework or gardening, and then your paid work as well, but see the same conditions. The best way through this week is to recognise what's going on. With Saturn now and in 2026, you will have your patience tested in a ring-fenced situation. You can only wait for it to end, but it does end. With Chiron, you have to understand that experimenting with what is supposed to be outrageous or unthinkable is pretty normal, and it may work. And finally, with Neptune, there is always a vacation from the real world. Sagittarius, the two-way street, the dual highway, the duet, or the duel in your life is where the revolution is. There is a genuine link between you and this man or woman, and it's about mutual freedom and independence. In fact, the pair of you might reinvent the duet, or even find freedom from a conflict or a feud, or through it. Uranus is always about all the U words, so this week brings a U-turn, an unusual turn of events, and a most unconventional outcome next year. Looking at the two of you, one against one or one with one eye on the future is very wise because chopping and changing is the norm. In fact, other people's ideas about permanence and security simply don't apply. A conventional or standard marriage, for example, may not be where it's at for you by this time next year. If you're single and you want a partner, then Sagittarius between now and next year, with clues this week, the last thing that you expected to happen may be the first thing that happens. Those of you who are in existing work partnerships or platonic partnerships are going to experience the same cycle this week, which asks you to accept that you need to break with the past if you're going to be free. And if others want you to break with the past or make it impossible not to do that, it's better to go along with it than to try and resist. Capricorn. This cycle will happily make or break the relationship that you have with your ex-partner, your current partner, your potential date for the future, and even your enemies. If it makes it, romance now could be an engagement next year. If it breaks it, then you have the amicable separation to end all amicable separations. Those are the Jupiter in Cancer rules. You only have this cycle once every 12 years, and it just keeps on building. This week is part of that process. The golden rule with this cycle, though, whatever the relationship is, and it may be a work partnership, and whatever the nature of the two-way street, is that you have to be an optimist. People who expect Jupiter in Cancer cycles to deliver without them trying often walk away wondering what happened because every astrologer has been telling them about the incredible opportunities and solutions. But you have to be proactive. Basically, astrology is about gardening, and Jupiter rules acorns that become oaks. You now have an acorn, so you have to make sure that it's properly planted and watered and fed, not just now, but ongoing until June 2026, when things could be so much bigger and better with this person, for them or through them, whatever that means to you. Aquarius. The family circle or the household has been reshaped many times since 2018. And you have one last episode, November to April 2026. Until then, well, the thing about Uranus in Taurus transits in your solar fourth house and Jupiter in Cancer transits in your natal fourth house is that the potential for a better home life or family circle is there, or your priority may be the household. We could be talking about your apartment or your house, the garden or the land, or an alternative residence that you have. And the extended family circle or the shared household is also part of this change and growth. If you have anything in Cancer in your birth chart, Aquarius, you can double that message. Even if you don't, What you're heading towards is the last lap of a revolution that began in 2018. It is a revolution that will set you free and give you more independence and space between now and next year. Pisces. It's quite true that money, property, shopping, shares, currency, selling and business can bring out the complication in life. And you have a triple cycle in Aries in that zone of your chart. Meanwhile, in your birth chart too, if you have anything in Taurus, Pisces, then the predictably unpredictable is coming back, returning in November. And by April next year, you will have seen again, since 2018, this cycle has been ongoing, what life can do when it follows a zigzag. Pisces, at the moment, you are going through this twin cycle in your birth chart, but also in your public chart too. And finding 3 different tactics or 3 different strategies is very wise. Because you are ruled by Neptune, the planet of escape, you are more likely to follow the escape path. It's almost like a get out of jail free card for you, Pisces, a vacation from the real world, or an outlet away and through. Every Piscean will do this differently, depending on his or her financial situation. However, at the same time, you'll also have a waiting game here, a ring-fenced situation full of restrictions and limitations that you're going to have to put up with next year too. And finally, the third part of this tri-cycle is Chiron. And that's where life gets really interesting, because there is somebody or something around you which you would call a maverick, asking you to experiment to see what you can get away with. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch up with you next week.